There is a version of Not Today that exists only on vinyl, only on streaming platforms, only in your earbuds on a commute. And then there is the version that exists at Tokyo Dome, in front of 55,000 people, performed by a man who has spent more than a decade turning his entire body into a language that the rest of the world is still learning to read. If you have never seen Jimin perform live, the gap between those two experiences is almost impossible to describe in words. But that is exactly what we are going to try to do today, because what happened in Tokyo on April 17th and 18th of 2026 was not just a concert. It was a statement, and Jimin was the one making it. Let's start from the beginning, because to understand what happened at Tokyo Dome, you need to understand the person who walked onto that stage. ParkJimin was born in Busan, South Korea, in 1995, and from the very beginning, his relationship with movement was something different from the kids around him. He started learning popping and locking in middle school at Just Dance Academy, not because someone pushed him into it, but because his body seemed to need it. That foundation in street dance, in the kind of movement that lives in the chest and the shoulders and the fingertips, would become the hidden engine beneath everything that came after. By the time he entered Busan High School of Arts, he had traded the street for the studio, enrolling in the contemporary dance department and becoming one of the top students in his class. He not only mastered technique, but also stood out for his ability to convey emotion through dance, a quality that would become his trademark. That is the sentence that explains everything. Not just good technique, not just clean lines, emotion through movement. That distinction is everything. When he officially debuted with BTS on June 13, 2013, he was introduced as BTS's main dancer, lead vocalist, and center for key choreographies. He was also the last member added to the group, recruited just months before debut, with the shortest training period of anyone in BTS. 6 months. Most K-pop trainees spend years drilling the synchronized precision that defines the genre before they ever see a stage. Jimin had 6 months to take everything he knew from contemporary dance and adapt it to a completely different movement vocabulary. He would attend school, come back and go straight to the practice room where he would practice into the early hours. That work ethic, that willingness to grind until the body memorized what the mind had only just learned, became the foundation of something that would take years to fully reveal itself. And then came the years, the tours, the sold-out stadiums, the choreography that fans would slow down frame by frame trying to understand how a human body could move that way. Songs like Lie, with its theatrical, almost violent expressionism, Filter, with its Latin pop sensuality and constant reinvention within a single performance. The solo stages that became the most talked about moments of every BTS concert, not because they were flashier than anything else on the set list, but because they felt like watching someone confess something in a language made entirely of movement. By the time BTS completed their mandatory military service and returned to the stage in 2026, the world had been waiting for years. And Jimin had been preparing for longer than that. The Arirang World Tour opened in Goyang, South Korea on April 9, 2026, and even from the very first night, it was clear that whatever these 7 men had been storing up during those years away had not dimmed. It had compacted, it had become denser, more focused, more deliberate. The BTS Arirang Tour setlist acted as a 10-year retrospective engine reimagined for a new era, and within that framework, the songs that had always required the most physical commitment from the group took on an entirely new weight. By the time the Tokyo Dome dates arrived on April 17th and 18th, the machine was fully warmed up, and 55,000 people per night were about to find out what that meant. Tokyo Dome itself is a specific kind of stage. BTS's return to the Tokyo Dome marked the first time in 7 years and 5 months since their world tour Love Yourself Japan edition in November 2018. 7 years is a long time in any career. In a career built on live performance, on the physical relationship between a performer and a crowd, 7 years is a lifetime. And yet the moment BTS stepped back onto that stage, something locked into place that suggested no time had passed at all, or more accurately, that all that time had been spent becoming more of exactly what they already were. Crowd chants grew louder during high-energy hip-hop tracks like Not Today and Mic Drop, with the audience closely tracking the group's delivery throughout the sets. That phrase, closely tracking, is the key. The crowd was not just reacting. They were watching, studying, trying to absorb every detail of what was happening in front of them. Not Today was released in 2017 as a track about resistance, about refusing to give up, about the refusal to let the world tell you when your time is over. The choreography has always matched the lyrical energy. It is dense, full of sharp isolations and powerful group unison, the kind of synchronized movement that turns 7 individuals into a single organism and then shatters that organism apart again into 7 separate expressions of the same idea. When performed at a stadium level, the visual scale becomes overwhelming. But what makes Jimin's contribution to that choreography so specific, so impossible to simply describe as good dancing, is the way he inhabits the intention behind each movement rather than just executing the movement itself. He is regarded as an exceptional dancer among the members of the group, and in K-pop in general, often praised for his smooth and elegant movements as well as his charm on stage. But those adjectives, smooth, elegant, charming, they only get you halfway there. They describe the surface of what Jimin does without touching the mechanism underneath. The deeper thing, the thing that separates a technically gifted dancer from someone who makes 55,000 people feel like they are personally being addressed, is the quality of presence. It is the sense that every gesture is inhabited from the inside out rather than constructed from the outside in. When Jimin rolls his shoulder during a count in Not Today, it does not look like a choreographed move. It looks like his body has no choice but to do exactly that, in exactly that moment, in exactly that way. On the second day, Jimin recreated a perfect stage from over 10 years ago with his signature sharp movements and lively footwork, shining with the aura of the undisputed stage master. That phrase, stage master, carries enormous weight in the K-pop world, where live performance is not just entertainment, but the primary arena in which an artist's identity is established and continuously renewed. To be called that at Tokyo Dome, in front of an international crowd, after years away from the stage, after the physical and emotional toll of military service, after all the pressure and expectation that came with BTS's return, is not a small thing. It is a verdict. Part of what makes Not Today so demanding is that it asks the body to be multiple things simultaneously. It asks for precision in the group formations, where any deviation from the synchronized pattern becomes immediately visible at stadium scale. It asks for individual expression within that precision, because a group of 7 people moving in perfect lockstep without any individual energy reads as robotic rather than powerful. And it asks for stamina, because the track does not give the performers room to coast. Every section requires full physical commitment, and the sections keep coming. For Jimin, who has spent his entire career operating at the intersection of technical mastery and emotional expression, Not Today at Tokyo Dome was a kind of stage that functions as a proof of concept. This is what the body can do when the technique is deep enough to be invisible. This is what performance looks like when the craft has been internalized so completely that what remains on the surface is pure feeling. The comparison point that keeps coming up when people try to articulate what Jimin does on stage is the distinction between dancing a song and becoming a song. Every trained dancer can execute choreography. The very best performers, the ones who define an era rather than simply existing within it, are the ones who disappear inside the music and let the music move through them. In 2021, Olympic figure skater Yuzuru Hanyu shared being a BTS fan and mentioned Jimin as a source of inspiration for his dance movements on the rink. When one of the greatest figure skaters in the history of the sport cites a K-pop performer as a movement inspiration, that is not a fan moment. That is a professional acknowledging a peer. Hanyu's entire career was built on the ability to convert athletic precision into emotional communication. The fact that he saw something of that same quality in Jimin is one of the clearest external verifications of what so many fans have been trying to put into words for years. What Tokyo Dome added to all of this was context. Not just the context of a tour, or the context of BTS's return, but the specific physical context of a 55,000 capacity stadium in Japan, a country with its own deep relationship to performance as a form of cultural communication. It was also BTS's first concert in Japan since 2018, returning to a country that embraced the group well before it became a worldwide phenomenon. Japan's army did not discover BTS after the global explosion. They were there in the early years, in the smaller venues, before the English language releases and the Billboard charts, and the Grammy nominations. Performing for that audience, in that space, carried a weight that went beyond the usual concert dynamic. It was a reunion between people who had shared something specific, something that existed before the world knew what it was watching. And Jimin, who had developed his entire performance philosophy around the idea of genuine communication rather than spectacle for its own sake, understood exactly what that reunion required. Jimin showcased longer blonde hair than at the Goyang concert, captivating audiences with a visual reminiscent of a comic book protagonist. The visual element is not separate from the dance. In performance at this level, everything is part of the same language. The way the hair moves during a sharp turn, the way the light catches a silhouette during a held position, the way the styling either reinforces or complicates the emotional register of a moment. Jimin has always understood this, has always approached the totality of stage presence as a unified practice rather than a collection of separate elements. The visual and the movement and the vocal, when it all comes from the same intention, creates something that cannot be reduced to any single component. HYBE chairman Bang Si-hyuk, in a recent interview with Billboard, explained his decision to significantly reduce choreography in some songs on the Arirang tour, describing the change as a deliberate attempt to align with the group's current artistic direction, and noting that the members initially questioned the approach. That detail matters here because it tells us something about the songs where the choreography was preserved at full intensity. Not Today and Mic Drop were not songs where that reduction applied. They were the songs where the physical commitment remained total, where the decision was made to keep the full weight of the choreography intact. In that context, the crowd response during those tracks, the roar that filled the dome as the formations locked into place, was not just audience enthusiasm. It was recognition. It was the sound of 55,000 people understanding exactly what they were seeing. The internet response to Jimin's performances at Tokyo Dome followed a familiar pattern for anyone who has been paying attention to his career. Fan cams that slow down specific 8 counts to examine the quality of a hand gesture. Compilation videos that place the 2026 performances alongside earlier ones to trace the evolution of a particular move. Comments from dancers, choreographers, and performers outside the K-pop world who discover the footage and process what they are seeing in real time. Jimin's Japanese fans launched support activities under the catchphrase, "Welcome back to Tokyo Dome, Jimin," featuring his impressive choreography across Shinjuku, Shibuya, and Roppongi billboards, sparking widespread discussion on social media. The advertising campaign that surrounded the concerts was a fan-organized expression of exactly the kind of deep, specific recognition that Jimin's performance generates. It was not generic idol support. It was a celebration of a specific quality, the choreography, the stage presence, the thing that makes this particular performer irreplaceable within a group that is already considered one of the most talented in the world. To bring this back to where we started, there is a version of Not Today that you can hear through speakers. And then there is the version that existed at Tokyo Dome in April 2026, performed by a man who began learning to move in a dance academy in Busan as a teenager, who spent years adapting a contemporary dance foundation to a completely different performance context, who has spent his entire career chasing the space between precision and emotion, and who walked onto one of the most iconic stages in Asia after years away and made it look like he had never left. Nobody moves like Jimin. Not because the statement is hyperbole, but because the specific combination of formal training, years of relentless practice, emotional intelligence, and a philosophy of performance that treats every gesture as an act of genuine communication produces something that, by definition, belongs only to him. The Tokyo Dome performances were not a comeback, they were a continuation. And for 55,000 people who were there, and for everyone who has watched the footage since, the proof was written in every single count. There is one more layer to this story that the American audience in particular needs to understand, because it reframes everything that happened at Tokyo Dome within a larger arc that is still unfolding. Jimin is not simply a great dancer who happens to be in one of the biggest groups in the world. He is a performer whose reach has already crossed into territory that most artists from any country never approach. When Like Crazy debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in April 2023, Jimin became the first South Korean solo artist in history to achieve that, and only the 4th Asian artist ever to top the chart since its inception in 1958. That milestone did not happen because of a viral moment or a lucky algorithm. It happened because of the same thing that makes his performance on Not Today at Tokyo Dome so impossible to look away from. The commitment is total, the craft is undeniable, and the audience, wherever in the world they are, can feel the difference between someone performing at them and someone performing for them. What that Billboard #1 established in the music industry, Jimin has been establishing on stage for his entire career. The chart success was the quantifiable version of something that had always been visible to anyone who had watched him perform. In 2023, Jimin stated that as a pop artist, he aims to excel at both dancing and singing and perform a diverse range of musical genres and themes while taking a healthy and sustainable approach to do so. That statement is not marketing language. It is a mission statement from someone who has spent every year of his career expanding what he is capable of rather than resting inside what he has already proven. And that expansion, that relentless push toward a fuller version of what performance can be, is exactly what you are watching when you watch him on that stage in Tokyo. For the American audience that is still finding their way into BTS, into K-pop, into the idea that the most interesting things happening in music right now might be coming from a direction they have not been looking, Jimin at Tokyo Dome is the perfect entry point. Not because it is accessible in an easy way, but because it is undeniable in a universal way. You do not need to know the history of K-pop choreography to understand that what you are seeing is extraordinary. You do not need to have followed BTS since their debut to feel the weight of what it means to watch someone perform with that level of complete physical and emotional commitment. The body knows. It responds before the mind has time to categorize or contextualize. That involuntary response, that moment where you lean forward without realizing you have done it, is the clearest evidence of what separates a great performer from everyone else. Nobody moves like Jimin. Tokyo Dome, April 2026, was simply the latest proof. And the tour is not over yet.